producing states in Nigeria have cut their domestic debt by 610 billion naira between 2022 and 2024, even as they receive a record 1.67 trillion naira in oil derivation allocations. Data from the Debt Management Office show that while states like Delta, Akwa Ibom and Bayelsa reduced borrowing significantly, Rivers State debt rose, of course, raising concerns about fiscal discipline. Despite debt repayment, almost 44% of states' internally generated revenue is still channeled into servicing obligations, leaving limited space for development projects. Analysts warn that while derivation funds have boosted liquidity, questions remain about transparency, sustainability, and whether these revenues are translating into jobs, infrastructure, and poverty reduction in Niger Delta. Gbolahan Olojede, investment banker, joins me now for the conversation. It's a pleasure to have you in this morning.
Yeah, nice to be on the program.
Right. 610 billion naira reduction in domestic debt by oil producing states between 2022 and 2024. What would you say is the driver here?
Of course, it's the fact that a lot more money has been available to states since 2023, when we don't forget that we removed fuel subsidy, and a lot more cash became available to the government. And when money becomes available to the government, it shares this out in the recommended ratio according to the law. So literally all states have made much more money. The derivation, which is what oil producing states get on top of their FAT allocation, has also increased dramatically. And the beautiful thing is that the money is being made available to them. There have been time in the past when some of these derivation and other stuff were not being paid. They're just there, or they are being accrued and paid in arrears. But it appears that this time around, both the FAT allocation and the derivation are being paid to the beneficiary. So they have a lot more money. And for the smart ones, they are definitely cutting down on debt, paying off some of their debt or meeting their debt obligation as at when due. And hopefully, they will also begin to let the benefit of this much more money dovetail into benefits, into dividends for their citizens.
I mean, we'll get round to that, how, they can channel these funds. But from what you're saying, this debt repayment, you can't exactly say it's a sign of fiscal discipline, can you?
Of course, in a way, it is, because you might as well, you might as well be, getting more debt. So apparently, what they have been doing is not to acquire more debt, but to continue paying down on their existing debt. So that will help with the issue of debt service burden, which will take away some of the money that should be available for development in this state, as it were. So definitely, it's fiscal discipline that they are paying down rather than gathering more debt. And for those that are not paying down, it should also be a point of concern for people to ask questions. There are people in the state. You see, one of the main problems we've had historically is the fact that every time you want to hold a state accountable, they will transfer that accountability to the federal government. It's, it's the government. It's the presidency. It's the Federal Ministry of Finance. But in reality, there is a lot going on at the sub-sovereign levels, and people must be holding government at those levels accountable also, just like we will hold the federal government accountable.
Indeed, accountability is key here. Looking at how this is all panning out and where the money is going, we're seeing that 44% of the internally generated revenue is going to service debt. So how much room do we have left for social and capital projects here?
Well, you're talking of the IGR. It's 44% of the internally generated. So right. in the real sense, there's still a lot of money, because apart from the internally generated, there is still the federal allocation. For most states, probably except Lagos, Ogun State, maybe one or two other states, the federal allocation is actually the bigger part of the state's revenue. So the state can still do a lot of things, even if 44% of its IGR goes into debt servicing. However, the better thing to look at is what is the nature of this debt? Is it a debt that you need to get out of? And if it's a debt that you need to get out of it. Most domestic debts are expensive. If they are expensive, why do you want to stay in an expensive debt? Pay it off and release yourself from the burden, especially since you're getting much more money from the federal government and from derivation for those states that receive 13% derivation. Just get out of the debt and save yourself all the money.
It's a smart thing to do. And looking closely, right, at this story, we are seeing oil-producing states, most of them, all of them, pretty much all of them, they have cut their domestic debt. They're cutting their domestic debt. The outlier, though, is Rivers State. Their debt is climbing despite receiving one of the largest derivation allocations. How do we explain this? Why?
We must ask the questions because the answers will be there in the numbers. So it is for the citizens of the state, for interested civil organizations, for journalists, like yourself, to engage with the government to understand what exactly is going on. The information that will allow for people to be able to analyze what could be going on are not publicly available. I cannot go to the Rivers State website now and see the information that will enable me to analyze why. So there is need to ask those questions as to why Rivers State will stand out as the state among the other oil-producing states where debt is climbing in spite of the fact that a lot more money is being received in FAC allocation, most likely a lot more money in IGR, and then a lot more money in 13% derivation. So why, as a matter of fact, the wealth, the income of Rivers State is bigger than the national income of a number of countries in West Africa. That's Rivers State as a state. Its income is bigger than the national income of quite a number of West African countries. So those West African countries still run their affairs. They have population, some of them probably bigger than population of Rivers State. They have port, they have rail, they have, so we must ask the questions. What exactly is going on in Rivers? Unless we are privy to those information, we may not be able to analyze. But let the citizens ask those questions from the government.
Definitely a call for accountability, and that demand is definitely being made. Let's also come down the record 1.67 trillion naira derivation allocation. You did mention earlier about it being channeled, right, to better use. Are we seeing that happen? Is it translating into jobs? Is it translating to infrastructure, poverty reduction within the Niger Delta region?
I hope we will begin to see that. For several months, when the FX market was very volatile, when the exchange rate was very volatile, there was a piece of news that said every time that FAC is released, Naira would take a dive. Essentially, once money is received by the state, some of the state go into the market and start to bid up, put pressure on the Naira. But thank God, dollars, the exchange rate has stabilized since about middle of last year, and the opportunities for foreign exchange gaming has reduced. As a matter of fact, the Naira has marginally appreciated against the dollar in the current year. So let's believe that those FX gaming is gone. It is now time for governors to begin to look at how they can impact their people, how they can make this extra income that has accrued to them to count for the people in terms of infrastructure, in terms of education, in healthcare services, and in creating an environment where businesses can thrive. I saw somewhere in the news somewhere today about an individual who was tarring a road in Port Harcourt. That's an individual who had waited and said, man, when is this road ever going to, get attention? And he has gone ahead to start fixing that particular road as an individual, a private citizen. So government at those levels must be asking, yes, federal government has its own bit. So there are no roads here, no roads there, there are federal government roads. But then there are also internal roads. Let me say this. There is no state in Nigeria, for example, that could say, I have provided potable water for my citizens. I think Abuja is trying. Abuja still has a long way to go as well. And I'm aware that the current boss is trying to do something in the water area. But just ask yourself about something so fundamental as water, that there is no state that can raise up his hand and say, I have provided potable water for my people. So the challenge is there. There's so much to be done.
Indeed, and
I just so ready. They'll wake up and begin to put this money to count for the people of those states.
Yes, indeed, and perhaps it can even lead to less oil dependence within the state domestically. There are also questions around imbalance, right? Especially with the fact that 90% of the derivation funds goes to just 4 states. Do you feel that creates some sort of imbalance in the fiscal federalism?
It's not an imbalance because derivation is by virtue of the fact that this is where this money comes from. Of course, if we flip that and go to resource control, it will get much bigger, in which case you're saying that even all the money should first of all go to those states, and then it is those states that should pay an amount to the federal government, as opposed to the money going to the federal government and the federal government reallocating a percentage of it back to the state. There are challenges with where resources are derived, and there should be compensation in recognition of those realities. If you go to the Niger Delta, if you see all those places where oil is being produced, we have not done very well in terms of environmental protection. There is serious poverty still existing in the creeks as we speak. Plants are dead, waters are polluted, fishes are gone, and there is so much degradation in all those places. And it would have been nice that as this derivation comes to the states, instead of sitting in the capital, say if you take a Delta state, which is Asaba, there are no rigs in Asaba, that the thinking of the state will actually go all the way to those locations where this oil is being produced, and we will impact the lives of those people. It is not enough that there are huge oil pipes running in my village, but there is no little pipe carrying water for me to drink. There is the fishes that I could survive on are all dead, and nobody seems to be doing anything about it. So when derivation comes, we should impact those communities where these things are coming from. That is an equitable thing to do.
Indeed. And finally, as we tie things together, what lessons would you say that other non-oil states perhaps can learn from the debt management we're seeing here and strategies of the oil-rich states?
Well, it might interest you to know that it is not just the oil states that have been able to reduce their indebtedness. Quite a number of other states that do not receive derivation have also received improved FAC allocation. And because of that, a number of them has been able to, go down a little bit on their indebtedness from the improved FAC allocation that they have been getting over the last couple of years. So as more revenue coming for the states, it behoves on the citizens to challenge the states to do more for the citizens of those states, to let this additional revenue count for them in terms of dividends of democracy. And there is so much to be done, from infrastructure to social infrastructure, which is education, healthcare, and the rest of them, so that the people can also be a beneficiary on one side, even as they suffer the pain on the other side. There are pains that came with where that money came from. That money came from removal of fuel subsidy as a critical part.
Right.
So people are paying more there. They need to also get the benefit on the other side.
Indeed, indeed. And hopefully we see just that happen. Gbolahan Olojede, investment banker, thank you so much for your time.